Now, that's what I'd like to know is how'd you get started? How does this begin?
Well, I started in 1984. I started working in the shop, cleaning the floors, watching guys draw, painting the shop. Being the little gopher of the shop. To learn what I know 27 years later. Where Tattoo Tony comes
And
in.
who you apprentice under?
I apprenticed under a guy in Asbury Park named Gene Bernardo.
Okay.
Also another gentleman named Tommy Bierman, and another guy named Rebel that was working in the shop.
What is it that drew you in though to actually start tattooing? Was it just what you saw? Like, what was the fascination with it?
I've always been into art. My mom was a painter. When I was real young, I used to watch my mom paint and stuff. And probably a funny story, real quick. When I was probably 11, 12 years old, my brother came home with a tattoo on his chest, a unicorn. I tell this story all the time. People are like, yeah, okay. He came home, he has this unicorn tattoo on his chest. I looked at my brother, I said, that's the coolest thing in the world. I said, I'm going to do that when I get older. Okay, now me being 11, 12 years old, my brother's like, yeah, whatever. Well, by the time I was 13, I was hanging around the shop. By the time I was 14, I started working in the shop, and I worked in the shop for 10, till 1994.
Have you always been in Jersey?
No, I've traveled around a lot. I mean,
Okay.
I grew up in Jersey. I've had shops in Tennessee, Florida, North Carolina. I've worked in shops in South Carolina, Arizona, New York, L.A. Just traveling around with my
So,
art.
do you consider yourself like a free spirit almost? Like what? Because most tattoo artists I know are stationary. They stay in one place 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, with myself, the way I do things, and I'm, because you see what I do, I keep myself out there and going. If I were to stay in one place, yeah, I'd be all right. I'd make a living. But with all the stuff I'm doing, all the traveling I'm doing, it keeps me out there in the light because people want to know who the hell is Tattoo Tony and where the hell did he come from. The branding began probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
Right around the time my son was born.
Okay.
When you have a kid, a lot of people say that it changes your life, and it definitely did that for me. I get up every day, and everything that I'm doing is for my kid. You know what I mean? And I can't emphasize that enough. There's a lot of parents out there that don't do the right thing. A lot of us have been there. I've been on my own since I was very young, and honestly, I would never back again want my son to live the life.
So once your son was born, it's pretty much the trigger that went off and said, I've got to start branding myself.
Absolutely.
Where did the liquor come out of? How that was approached to you?
About a year and a half ago, I was approached by Atlantic Bottling Company to do some drawings for their labels for their new iced tea they were coming out with. It was originally going to be called Jersey Shore Hard Iced Tea, and then by Tattoo Tony.
By Tattoo Tony.
So we started plugging it a little bit, and the bottling company had seen the response that we were getting, and they called me one day and they said, Tony, we think we're just going to change the name of the iced tea to Tattoo Tony's Hard Iced Tea.
Has it evolved since you started? Like, does your style changed over the years?
Oh my God, it has. When I first started tattooing in 1984, it was, typical Rose name, cartoon character. Now you're doing portraits of people's faces. Just the work in itself has progressed so much from. If you look at work 20 years ago and you look at the work now, it's like somebody doing stick figures to Picasso on somebody's body.
Give me an example. Like, what is a major piece you've done?
Oh man. Portraits. Actually, I got to do a portrait here in the next couple of days.
Okay.
I'm starting to get really big into the black and gray portrait scene. I've done full body pieces. One customer this past summer, we did a whole back piece of devil sitting at a chessboard with a bottle of Jack.
Jack is good stuff.
And then flames and stuff like that coming up in the background.
How long does it take you to get that stuff done now?
That piece took me about 30 hours.
At this point in your time, when was it that, because that famous guy that you mentioned before,
Right.
that is a personal friend,
Right.
you were his personal tattoo artist,
Right.
You were his personal assistant,
Yep.
Bret Michaels.
Yep.
How did this come about?
Oh, long story. My family's big into wrestling. Old school wrestling.
Bret didn't wrestle though. Right?
No, Bret wasn't a wrestler. Not that wrestling guy. He'd seen some work that I did on my family, and at that time he just had his daughter Georgia, and he wanted to get Georgia and Rain, which is both his daughters' names tattooed on them. I got a phone call from a gentleman that was working for him at the time, and said Bret wants to meet you. He wants to get tattooed. I'm like,
Believe
okay.
that?
I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So, they gave me this address to go to. I'll never forget this place. It was called Fred's Lobster Shack in Tioga, Pennsylvania, which is basically the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania.
And you're going to meet him.
Right. Okay. So I pull up there, and there's tour bus is there, Brett's there, the Bret Michaels band is there, and I was
going through your head at this time.
I was like, okay, this is really, is this really gonna happen?
I mean, how far have you gone in your career at this point? Have you tattooed other celebrities before?
Oh yeah, I've tattooed a wide variety.
Is this during the phase where you said you were lost?
I would say that. Yeah, it was actually it was too late or early 2004 when I first met Bret, and he back to the tattoo thing. It took me 6 months to actually tattoo Bret.
Okay.
When I did tattoo Bret, I was made an offer to change my ways.
Okay.
I was told that I can either stay here and die, or I could go with him.
That's what he said to you at that point. Because that's what I want to get to that point of because I remember you said you got lost in the beginning at some time during this long career.
I'm not scared to hide it. I mean, I was 17 years of my life I was a drug addict. Okay. I've got 8 years clean now. And it's all due to the inspiration of Bret.
So if I could sum this up, you started around 13, 14, started Princeton, cleaning the shops.
Getting high,
getting messed up, hanging out with a lot of people, eventually tattooing celebrities and whatnot.
Yep.
And you started moving around the States tattooing.
Yep.
Still lost, still living the life. And your son is born in the middle of you being lost? Or?
No, my son was born my 4th year into being clean and sober. Being clean. Sober's a whole other thing. But,
okay.
4 years into being clean.
Clean, okay.
And ever since he's been born, it's just it's opened my eyes to waking up in the morning and I hear daddy, you know what I mean, and getting him ready for school. I'm mommy, daddy. I'm a father with full legal custody.
In the future.
Oh yeah.
What was that point though when you actually met him? Like what was going through your head? Because that's what I was understanding. Now you're starting to clean yourself up, but you're still kind of lost. You meet Bret.
Right.
He asked you to do a tattoo. What tattoo was that?
I did his daughter's names.
Just his daughter. That was the only thing. Okay.
Yep.
And at that moment, how did it come about? Like your problems? Most people don't put their problems on the table.
Right. Well, apparently he had done some research into me, and while I was talking to him, he kind of picked my brain the same way I pick my customers' brains when they come in. Okay. They got an idea and learned something about me, and he changed my ways for the rest of my life. And I'm very proud to say, thank you to him for what he's done for me.
You remember that conversation clearly?
Oh yeah, every day. I was tattooing him, and he's like, I know what you're going through. I know where you're at and where you're heading in your life. He goes, you can either stay here and die, or you come with me.
That's something else. I mean, for somebody to want to pick you up, take you under the wing, and really believe in you, must have came off very strong. Like when you met him.
I don't know what it was. He's a very dear close friend. We've done a lot of stuff together in the last couple of years. A lot of TV shows. A lot of being there for each other. I'm not going to really get into it. When he came down sick the first time in Texas, I was there for him just like he was for me. You know what? That bond is there.
That was that big news thing when.
Yeah. Well, when it all first started, yeah.
Okay.
So
you've been. That's when you. Is that using that time you repaid him at that time?
Well, there's never a sense of repayment. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what friends do. I mean, just God forbid something happens to you. You know what I mean?
I hope not.
I know, but you know what I mean. God forbid something happens to you. You know what? I'm there. I'm going to be there to make sure my friend's okay. You know what I'm saying? So that's just the way I was raised.
Do you feel like you've left the tattoo? Like, do you still consider yourself a tattoo artist? Or are you more of a business that you're branding?
I am an artist. I will always be an artist. My heart and soul is my tattoo work. I mean, all the other branding stuff and everything else, you know what? That's well and good. And if everything takes off, you know what? My son will be well taken care of. But when push comes to shove, I'm an artist.
Child into something, like a jaded old man who's been faded fast to nothing. Somewhere between Virginia and Nashville, Tennessee, a song came on the radio with a familiar melody, and I felt every single